My name is Allison Graham, and today I will be presenting to you my research completed over my last 2 years in the Master of Teaching program at OISE. The title of my research paper is Developing Identity Through Literacy, an Analysis of the Teacher's Role According to Curriculum. My research looks at portions of provincial documents, particularly in the 2006 Ontario Language Curriculum, as well as Stepping Stones, published in 2012, to identify the responsibility of teachers when it comes to the identity development of their students, as well as what potential gaps may be present in a 15-year-old curriculum. Before we dive in, I'll take you through a brief outline of what I'll be discussing today. Firstly, I will introduce the problem statement, as well as the relevant literature and my research questions. Secondly, I will be explaining the methodology I used to conduct my research. And thirdly, I will share with you my findings. New media forms both target users according to identity and reproduce cultural and societal values that shape self-perception and ideas of good citizenship. With the 2006 Ontario Language Curriculum published over 15 years ago, the question arises as to whether it addresses contemporary media experiences with effectiveness and what the Ministry of Education expects of Ontario teachers when it comes to the challenges those experiences pose to students. There is a significant amount of research covering the following areas: identity development, and identity and civic engagement, teacher perception, teacher self-perception, and the effects of social media on youth. Current research supports how media-related competencies must be in conversation with discussions about identity and citizenship in order to support students' well-being and prepare them to be active members of society. While much of the research provides insight on the importance of developing identity in connection to social media or citizenship, there lacked a line connecting all these topics together. Also, there lacked an examination of what was actually expected of educators outside of curriculum fulfillment, especially in Ontario. So I developed my central research question. What does the Ministry of Education expect of Ontario teachers with regard to supporting the identity and citizenship development of intermediate students in the digital age? From there, I developed my sub-questions as follows. How does the 2006 Ontario Language Arts Curriculum, grades 7 to 8, and supporting ministry documentation address the teacher's role in student identity development? What connections do the selected readings make between digital literacy, citizenship, and identity? My questions may give away my methodology. I chose to do a qualitative study conducting specifically a text-based analysis of government documents. The sources analyzed have been treated as subjective, influenced by both the political philosophies of the government and public will. My choice in documents was based on 3 selection criteria: the author, the documents must be published, promoted, or funded by the Ministry of Education; the date or time frame, the documents must be published within the last 10 years unless still actively used today; and the use, the intended reader or audience of the documents must be teachers, parents, school boards, or students. These choices for my documents were the Ontario Language Curriculum, grades 1 to 8, published as a revision edition in 2006, and Stepping Stones, which is a document from 2012, still in use today as the reference for youth development. From the language curriculum, I focused on the introductory pages and the grade 7 and 8 media literacy strands. And with Stepping Stones, I focused on part 3, positive youth development, because this was where I would find much of the foundational theory that supports the Ministry of Education's decision-making. Finally, I will lead you through what I found as a result of my study and the existing literature. 3 major themes emerged from my data analysis in response to my research questions. Firstly, with regard to the teacher's role, their responsibility is to foster relationships between students, with students, and between the students and their community, but the former and the latter being most greatly emphasized. Secondly, with regard to digital literacy, identity and citizenship development are central to the 2006 language curriculum. But thirdly, the intermediate media literacy strands fail to address contemporary media issues that are central to the 21st century youth experience. First, I'll discuss theme 1. The teacher's responsibility is to foster relationships between students, with students, and between students and their communities. The first thing I feel compelled to address about the language use in the beginning of the language curriculum is that, unlike the overt and action-based language used to describe teachers' responsibilities around fulfilling curriculum, an example of which is seen in the top right circle on my slide, most of the teacher's responsibilities are implied or encouraged. An example of these implied expectations and responsibilities can be found in the circle to the left. This example shows that there is ambiguity and room for interpretation in the curriculum, providing teachers with some autonomy in their pedagogical approach that can be adapted to unique circumstances. But with the onus for the depth and the breadth of social, emotional, and culturally relevant pedagogy falling on the shoulders of educators with few resources supplied, these critical elements of students' identity development can be brushed aside in favor of hitting curriculum expectations. Stepping Stones places a greater emphasis on actions educators, as well as other adults, can take to support the development of young people. Relationship building, primarily in the forms of modeling, mentoring, and community building, is stressed as one of the most important ways students can be supported. These strategies are also referenced in the curriculum. However, Stepping Stones is merely a resource and is not a required document for teachers to read, and the suggestions are just that. Though the importance of youth identity development is stressed in this document, it's not mandatory. On to theme 2. Identity and citizenship development are central to the Ontario 2006 Language Arts curriculum. The connection between identity, citizenship, and media is most clearly articulated in Marshall McLuhan's concept of the global village. Technology is able to connect those who have access on a global scale, shifting both what citizenship looks like and how identity is formed. The curriculum identifies the need for the skills and competencies required to navigate high-tech media. If society is transformed by the media and vice versa, then so are the types of citizens that live in the society. A participatory democracy such as Canada requires the exchange of ideas, which requires individuals to develop and share their unique perspectives and see themselves as agents of social change. Once again, while these are clearly identified within the curriculum, nowhere does the text explicitly instruct teachers they must teach literacy in this manner. Finally, theme 3. The media literacy curriculum fails to address contemporary media issues that are central to the 21st century youth experience. The third theme serves as an answer or more of a non-answer to my second sub-question. What connections do the selected documents make between digital literacy, citizenship, and identity? Both the curriculum and Stepping Stones fall short in terms of addressing the positive and negative effects of digital media on youth, relying rather on vague language about the influence on students' lives. There is no acknowledgement that new media have allowed both online and offline spaces to weave together and influence one another. Neither do these texts address potential cultural differences in creating and interpreting media. They do not address the methods of targeted and niche advertising, and they do not attempt to dissect the oftentimes racist, sexist, colonial, and patriarchal values that feed and frame much of media production. Moving on, there are 3 major conclusions that I made based on the results of my research. A, the Ontario language curriculum, grades 1 to 8 media literacy strand must be updated to match contemporary updates in communicative tech. B, the ministry must be clearer in its language when it comes to teacher responsibility outside of fulfilling curriculum. And C, the ministry must provide more resources, policy, and professional development to support teachers in cultivating student identity and citizenship. Finally, I want to identify both some implications of my research as well as areas of study for further research that I would highly recommend. I believe that my research provides some much needed insight for teachers into the oftentimes confusing, vague language within curriculum documents. Not only can teachers benefit from this clarity, but I believe parents and boards could as well, as people who are supporting teachers in fulfilling the curriculum expectations. Secondly, my research has identified gaps in the language curriculum that is currently in use in public schools. And I want to emphasize the need for a new one that addresses the challenges and benefits of new media, that is culturally responsive, that accounts for student identity and citizenship in the present age, and that demonstrates an awareness of how all of these things influence student well-being. Future research into this topic could take a number of different directions. Firstly, other curriculum documents should be analyzed through the same lens. Curricula such as the social studies curriculum and the health and physical education curriculum, which specifically address citizenship and social emotional skills respectively, could address these issues in a more direct way than the language curriculum document. In terms of the depth of this field of research, I see the need to dive deeper into the cultural relevance of the media literacy curriculum and the curriculum document as a whole. Teachers are merely encouraged to use cultural texts in their literacy pedagogy and told this is for the good of the students, but there are no specific expectations in the media literacy strand that require those to be included, for example. There is much more to explore both in terms of depth and breadth of inquiry. I hope my research has been informative and thought-provoking, and thank you so much for listening.